Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of NFL Dash. I'm Cody Schoeler here with Ryan Root as always, and we're going to be getting into a little season preview here as football is finally back. We've just had a full week of preseason with every team playing over the past couple of days. The season is rapidly approaching, so we're going to kind of look at what we think will happen this season. We've got some division and conference winners. We've got some season awards, and we've got some statistical leaders. We're just kind of look at, who's favored, who we think could pull it off, who we think are some values, with a little bit of some odds from FanDuel on that. So, Ryan, we'll go straight into some division winners. No particular division I want to ask you about. I just, go where your heart desires and tell me maybe your favorite value maybe of them all, because I've got mine, but yeah, maybe your favorite kind of value or the way you're looking at.
So I'm sure you're asking like the team that I think is the for sure bet that they'll win their division. Is that what you're kind of saying?
Well, I mean, I think is absolutely the Chiefs, and
Pretty
they're
much,
at
yeah.
cheap, they're at minus 270. Bills are minus 150. Like those are pretty giveaways. But do you have a team that maybe has a bit more value on them that you like?
In terms of having a little bit more value on them, we're looking at FanDuel's odds here. I don't particularly agree with them putting the Ravens over the Browns. I think the Browns kind of inch over the Ravens, and it's close.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
The Browns have arguably the most talented roster in the league, I would say. There's numerous teams you can kind of throw into there, but the Ravens are still trying to figure out weapons for Lamar to use, and their defense will always be well above average. But their number one receiver this year, outside of Mark Andrews, is a first-round draft pick, right?
Yeah, they got Marquise. They got Marquise Brown.
That's true. I mean,
they got Sammy Watkins.
There's no out there, though. There's no Pro Bowl.
No.
So I mean, as much as as little as Pro Bowlers mean nowadays, right? But Baltimore is still kind of figuring out how to make Lamar truly, truly unstoppable. But Cleveland, on the other hand, is a run-first team, much like Baltimore, but they can air it out to Jarvis Landry or OBJ. Granted, if OBJ is healthy this season, but Cleveland has more playoff experience, more tough games, that they were literally a yard away from upsetting the Chiefs. Or possibly upsetting the Chiefs is more like it. I think the Browns inch a little bit further past the Ravens, and they are, at least in my book, I'd say the Browns are a top 5 favorite for the Super Bowl. In terms of the AFC Championship, AFC Championship, I would argue, is probably one of the toughest conferences, big conference title games to really predict. The NFC, there's their clear, Tampa is obviously the clear front runner there, but Kansas City, if the Bills just knew how to run the ball a little bit more in that AFC title game, it could have been a lot closer, and the Bills may have gone to the Super Bowl. And also with the play with Cleveland that I mentioned before. So I think Cleveland's a little undervalued in here. I mean, it's only a plus 100 difference between them and Baltimore. Yeah. It's going to be very close. They'll probably have the same record, if not be a win off from each other, and it will go down to a division record at the end of the day. But I value Cleveland a little bit more than Baltimore.
Yeah, that's super close. I like Baltimore still, but I definitely think Cleveland's a good shot to win that with a little bit better odds. But I think Baltimore, this could be the year they put it together. I trust that coaching staff to kind of do the right thing. I mean, I don't know if we've ever seen a team just retool an offense around a player the way they did Lamar Jackson to make it work. So I trust Baltimore when it comes to that and the coaching, but I could certainly see that go either way. And then both are good picks to win the AFC. Obviously, the Chiefs and the Bills are the favorites and probably the two best teams, but there's a lot of there's some good teams behind them. My favorite pick is one that I've talked about before, and it's the Washington football team to win their division at plus 260. I'm so high on the Washington football team that it's probably weird, but is there any reason for the Cowboys to be like favored over them? I don't think the Cowboys are necessarily a better team. Like they have Dak Prescott and they have Zeke
the
and some
better
good receivers,
offense, and they
but
have the
their
better.
defense is
Yeah,
terrible.
exactly.
Meanwhile, the other side is Washington has an incredible defense. It might be the best defense in the NFL this year, and then an offense that is solid. You know, I mean, you've got Terry McLaurin, who's a good wide receiver. You've got Antonio Gibson, who's a good running back. You've got some decent talent on the offensive line, and you've got Ryan Fitzpatrick, who has led teams to the playoffs before, has been a really solid option. And the craziest thing about this is the best team he's ever played on. This is the first time he's brought in to be a starter of a team with playoff hopes. He's always brought in on the team that sucks, and he takes over for the struggling young guy and leads the team to 8-8 when they should win 4 games. Like now he's actually taking over a team that made the playoffs last year with, I mean, Alex Smith recovering from the horrific injury and had Taylor Heineke start a playoff game. So I think Washington at plus 260 to have that type of return on a team that, I mean, won the division last year and really only got better. I mean, I don't see a lot of competition, absolutely not from the Eagles or the Giants. And then I think the Cowboys are probably the most overrated team in all of sports every year. I mean, the fact that to win the conference, they're the 6th team to win the conference over the Saints, over the Vikings, over the Cardinals, I mean, not that these teams are any great, but the Cowboys, like they were not good last year. And their defense is still bad. They've got a lot of problems. So I really like Washington football team to win that division again. And that is mine. Like maybe at the end of the year, it'll turn out that I'm the weirdest person that's not a Washington fan to be super high on them, but I like that team, so call me crazy.
Yeah, I mean, looking at other odds there's the clear bottom feeders in both conferences, right? I'm not going to sit here and say the Detroit Lions are my favorite pick for the NFC North.
Yeah, exactly. Sure, it'll give you a bunch of money, but it's not going to happen. Or the Houston Texans.
Right. So, I mean, like, in terms of the NFC, I could be a little biased here, but Seahawks at a plus whatchamacallit for
280, third best in the division. Third, yeah.
They're perceived to be the third best in the division this year, when others would put them at arguably number 1.
I mean, they won it last year.
Yeah, it's the best division in football. Every team has arguably gotten better to some degree. Maybe not so much San Fran. I think they've just gotten really healthy over the offseason.
Yeah.
But San Fran just getting healthy over the offseason and getting a first round, getting a third overall pick quarterback. So San Fran being the favorite according to FanDuel on the NFC West.
Yeah, it's a little interesting.
Really agree. If anything, other than the Seahawks, I'd probably put the Rams easily.
I like them. Yeah, I think the Rams are the best team in the division.
Yeah, I mean, because their defense didn't take too much of a hit. They still got, 2 of the best players in their positions, and Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald.
Yeah, I mean, they're at the point where they lose some guys because they're priced out, but they are replacing them with younger guys and doing good. So the defense, will be solid.
And they lost Cam Akers for the rest of the season.
Yeah, he's out for the season.
And Cooper Kupp is still there. I mean,
Robert Woods,
clear upgrade at quarterback with Matt Stafford. I mean, the Rams could be a very interesting team. Do I think they're going to go all the way to the NFC Championship game? That's kind of a coin flip for me. But they're close to figure out second place is kind of my way.
They're my NFC Championship pick.
You think the Rams will go to the bowl?
I mean, just from a value standpoint, I mean, Tampa Bay is definitely the best team, but just
Tampa Bay will sure be the conference championship game.
Yeah, but also I wouldn't they are the best team on paper, but I wouldn't be surprised if Tampa Bay struggles this year. I mean, they're not. I have more trust in the Chiefs than I do in the Bucks, just because I've seen the Chiefs do it for years. So honestly, one of my My favorite like long shot of them all in the division is the Falcons to win their division. I don't think that's very likely to happen, but I mean this I could see the Saints slipping and not doing it. I could see the Bucks.
That's a very overvalued pick with the Saints.
So it's like
people are still hanging on to the Saints for dear life, it seems.
yeah, and like the Falcons, like they've upgraded. They have a new coach, which you can never count out. I mean, the Browns got a new coach, and they, were better. A coach can change a lot of things, and at the end of the day, when you're looking at stuff like this, I mean, I would rather bet on Matt Ryan than I'd rather bet on Jameis Winston or Taysom Hill. I'd rather bet on Matt Ryan than I would on Jimmy Garoppolo. So much of it comes down to quarterback play, and Matt Ryan is not elite. He's anymore. We didn't talk about him when we talked about top 5 quarterbacks, but yeah, he's solid. He's not going to be terrible. He's going to be good. So that's a value that I kind of like, just in terms of out of all the kind of long shot teams, they're probably the best. But going back to the NFC West, yeah, the Niners as the favorite, I don't really agree with, because like I said, Jimmy Garoppolo's still their starter, and if he's not, then it's going to be a rookie. And I think that's hard when you've got the Seahawks, who won it last year with Russell Wilson, and the Rams, who beat the Seahawks in the playoffs and were very close all year and just got Matt Stafford. So it's hard. I like the Rams. I think that Matt Stafford, I think he's going to have an incredible year. I'll talk about him a bit later. But the Rams are my team. But this
we're going to talk about with him,
not to this extent you might think, but yeah, and the Seahawks, they're obviously a great pick, because like I said, you're betting on Russell Wilson at those odds. Like, just bet on the quarterback at that point. That's what you're doing.
I would say maybe the least valued pick in terms of the NFC Championship rankings that they have here as the second team, like, that has the best chance of winning the NFC title, is the Packers. I mean, the Packers barely cracked the top 5 for me in terms of NFC champions. They still have the team, but it's like, you're telling me they're going to be the exact same team from last year after this entire offseason with Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams drama. It's like, sure, they'll be the clear winner of the division. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But winning the NFC Championship, I mean, they got embarrassed by Tampa Bay. And they've gotten embarrassed by San Fran, and they got embarrassed the year before, didn't they? Right? I mean, they cannot get it done in the NFC Championship game, and I would argue that they've gotten worse over the offseason. In just a way of morale and everything.
Yeah. It just, I mean, the NFC is really interesting, because the AFC has, I think, 4 teams that are legitimate chances in Kansas City, Buffalo, Baltimore, Cleveland. Any of those 4, I could see winning it, and I wouldn't really be shocked, But if you look at the NFC, after Tampa Bay, all these teams have holes. Obviously the Niners have huge holes. The Rams, the Seahawks, it's really wide open. So if it's not going to be Tampa Bay, I'm not saying that it will, but then it really could. It could be a lot of teams. There's, other than Tampa Bay, there's not really any other perfect teams in the NFC. So that could make it really interesting. So is Tampa Bay your pick
for the NFC?
Would you say
the NFC championship
to win the NFC Championship?
It's I don't disagree that you think the Rams. That's not a terrible pick.
Yeah,
but if I had to pick, it's not going to be Green Bay. It most likely will be Tampa Bay. If I could pick a dark horse,
Washington
for the
Washington
NFC
football team,
a little bit lighter of a horse than that. If I could pick a dark horse for an NFC championship team that's not Tampa Bay, I call me biased. I'm going to go Seattle.
Because certainly.
Having the third year with DK and Russell Wilson, Tyler Lockett's still there, Chris Carson they brought back,
improved defense,
new tight end. That's a dark horse. I'm not saying a favorite. I would, if I had to pick a favorite, yes, Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I mean, I'll talk about it briefly. I mean, the Rams are my pick. I think that what we're going to see, I think they've got to the Super Bowl before as one of, not like slipped in, as one of the best teams in the league. And Matthew Stafford will be better than Jared Goff was that year. Obviously, like that was, high of Todd Gurley, but Matthew Stafford will be better. This will be the best quarterback that McVay has had in his time as the Rams head coach. So I think that provides a lot of value because, we've seen him turn Jared Goff, who now is, discarded to Detroit, which is one of the worst fates in the NFL.
One of the worst fates in sports.
Yeah. McVay turned him into a dude that got however many millions of dollars extension. So imagine what he can do with Matthew Stafford, who's incredibly talented. So I like that pick, but Washington at plus 240. They have the same odds as the Bears. This is a team that I think is going to, once you get in the playoffs, once you get a seat at the table, I think they have a more clear path than Chicago or Arizona or, Minnesota around them. So saying not a bad pick. But AFC, who's your AFC pick? Because
Bills.
Like we mentioned, Bills. Yeah. I think, the Bills. The
Bills
Chiefs
are coming back with a vengeance.
Yeah, that's certainly. I like the Ravens just a little bit as a value. They were kind of my team even a while ago, just thinking they're right outside that top tier. If you look at the top tier of Super Bowl teams, like if you just looking, it's the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Buccaneers, and then I guess the Packers are thrown into that based on what they did last year. But outside of that, the Ravens in that kind of next tier, I think they are a team that if they put it together could be really scary and could be really good with a great defense and an offense led by Lamar. I think could be really good. But it's hard to go against the Chiefs or the Bills just based on how good they were last year.
Josh Allen got that extension. Bills are still intact.
Yeah,
they're not just going to go to the AFC Championship game for the first time in over 2 decades and just wither away in the wind. They still got their coaching staff. The fans are still behind them, and also not only the fans being behind them, but the fans are going to be behind them, especially now considering all the rumors with them relocating in the near future.
Well, and imagine if, say the Bills have the best record this year, which isn't insane. They could have a better record than the Chiefs. And if that game is played in Buffalo, there's no way they're losing. That place will probably burn down either way, but that'll be crazy. So, Buffalo, they're just a fun team. I can't argue with that at all.
That's going to be my pick for sure. I'm excited. If I could get a Seahawks Bills Super Bowl, I would be in heaven. That's just me personally, but yes.
Well, yeah. So let's move on to talking about some season awards. MVP, Rookie of the Years, Defensive Player of the Years, and the like. Ryan, what are? We can start with MVP. We can start wherever you want. But what are some? Where are you looking at with that?
So MVP. The way that they must do these rankings or these odds has to just be based off of mostly like just their stature their ability as a player, talent level.
Well, yeah, it's all
the MVP award for the most part is a hype award.
Oh yeah, it's a narrative award
for the most part. Recently, Lamar Jackson is an MVP, is a former MVP quarterback. Is he a top 5 quarterback? Not to me, but most people would not say he's a top 5 quarterback, but he's a former MVP. Patrick Mahomes is a former MVP, but he didn't win it last year, but people are going to say he's the best quarterback in the league. Tom Brady is a former MVP and there's all these other things, but there's so this is based off of hype for the most part. Now, I'm going to go off of hype for this award because that's how it's been as of late. In terms of a favorite for MVP, I wouldn't be surprised if Josh Allen is one of the front runners.
Yeah, second last year.
Yeah, so I wouldn't be surprised if Josh Allen is yet again one of the front runners. But I want to know who in their mind thinks Dak Prescott has a higher chance of winning MVP than Russell Wilson.
Well, so the way that they do these books too is all they they want to make money, and like I said, the Cowboys are always overrated. So like the fact that there's a lot of Cowboys fans that are going to bet on Dak makes his odds become like go lower. So that's why the Cowboys are always going to be overrated just because of how hyped they are.
Just that entire fan base, yeah. I mean, I put Baker Mayfield over Dak.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, it comes down to, but also, I mean, the way Dak was playing last year, the way he was playing, it wouldn't have surprised me if he was
for sure.
Yeah, the best quarterback. I still think your team has to be better to win MVP, obviously. So, and with me thinking that Washington is going to win that division, but I mean, that a Cowboys quarterback is always going to have these high odds because that's just what the Cowboys are. But so yeah, that obviously is going to look bad, especially him being over Lamar, who's done it before. And the thing about Lamar is his path to winning MVP is easier than most because of what he can do. The fact that if he gets 1,000 rushing yards and 30 something passing touchdowns and they win the division, those are just numbers that other people don't ever put up. So it's a bit easier, for a guy like him, as opposed to Tom Brady. He's gonna have to throw 50 touchdowns to even get close to hit some of his best seasons. But who's your who? So we know who you don't like, but who do you like? Who would be your
if
pick
I could
here?
pick my top three, in order for see, this is gonna be tough because I'm just gonna have to stick with it basically because I'm gonna call it here and now. My number one favorite for winning MVP, taking into account hype and talent and all this other, I mean, I could pick Patty Holmes all day based off talent, but based off of my jurisdiction, I say Josh Allen's my number one.
Yeah.
Number two, maybe a little left field, but I mean, depending on how their season goes, I'd go Kyler Murray.
Oh, that's my pick.
Yeah, and then third, and is my favorite dark horse pick for MVP because I would absolutely be ecstatic for him to win this award.
Ryan Fitzpatrick.
No.
Oh, what? Yeah, I mean, he's certainly following in that narrative of it's been breakout players. Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Aaron Rodgers won it last year, but Josh Allen was second. It has been the guys making the leap that have been winning MVP recently. Because if Patrick Mahomes goes crazy again, we've seen it before. I think he's becoming the default guy that Tom Brady was for all those years. Because Carson Wentz, he was going to win MVP. He gets injured. Oh, I guess we'll give it to Brady. You could always give it to Brady. You're always going to be able to give it to Patrick Mahomes unless he's injured and out for a year or out for an extended period of time. So, I mean, he's certainly going to be in the conversation every year. And, if he throws 50 something touchdowns, yeah, give it to him. He deserves it. But yeah, Kyler Murray, I really like. He was playing really well last year, was in the MVP conversation at times.
The first third of the season was
exactly.
Russell.
He fits the breakout mold where if he does it, he'll be, ascending to superstardom. The rushing ability, it's can't be overlooked. I mean, he had 8 or 10 rushing touchdowns last year, which is, insane.
Considering his size too, that's pretty
exactly. Cool. So if he gets, that many rushing touchdowns, he's thrown to DeAndre Hopkins. He's throwing, maybe AJ Green bounces back. But I mean, if the Cardinals can, win the division or even make the playoffs, I mean, it'll be because of him. So yeah, especially if you look at the value, the fact that he has the 10th best odds, for a guy who I think is incredibly talented. Yeah, I really like that. Justin Herbert, he would certainly fit in that mold as well. I think if he doesn't, it might be hard without winning the division. If they can't beat the Chiefs for the division, that might be kind of tough, especially with how good his rookie year was too. He, broke the rookie touchdown record. So he's kind of already even at that level, whereas Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes were coming from, their preseason odds would not have been nearly as high as Justin Herbert's. They were much lower. But But yeah, the further down I look, I mean, there's really not a lot that I like, just because it's probably going to a quarterback. I guess maybe Matt Ryan, if I think based on me thinking the Falcons could do something, but I think Kyler Murray, maybe Baker Mayfield.
That's a take and a half right there. But
I mean, I don't think this could happen, but I mean, maybe in terms of guys who I think could, because if the Vikings win the division, it's not going to be because Kirk Cousins was great. I don't think Kirk Cousins is going to win it. So I think it's possible.
Yeah,
but
in terms of out of position MVP players, out of non-quarterback MVP, I mean, in terms of running back, obviously it would either be CMC or Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
In terms of receiver, I mean,
I don't think a receiver.
I'm just throwing them out there. I mean,
yeah,
they'd have to have ridiculous seasons is the thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, it's going to be a quarterback award unless you're. I mean, what was the last non-quarterback MVP? Was
Adrian Peterson?
Yeah,
who rushed? I mean, Derrick Henry last year might have had a case. You rush for 2,000 yards. I think you deserve to be in the conversation. But just with the numbers quarterbacks are putting up,
well, Adrian Peterson was like 9 yards off of the record at that year.
So I think Derrick Henry and Christian McCaffrey are the only running backs that have a stake to it. I think the Panthers won't be good enough for McCaffrey to legitimately have a shot.
If McCaffrey had 1,500 yards rushing and 1,000 yards receiving,
he'd have to do something. So those two certainly have paths because of their skill set, but it's just not. It's going to go to a quarterback. But we can move on to what you can pick the next one. Whatever you want to talk about. You want to go defensive player. You want to go rookies of the year.
Defensive player of the year is still pretty obvious. I mean, was it Aaron Donald that won it last year too?
Yep. He's won, 3
It's
out of the
either
last
going to be
4.
him or, depending on how good the Browns do, I would absolutely see Myles Garrett in there.
Oh, see, I like Myles Garrett. I think
too is a good one. Yeah,
I think Myles Garrett could be the guy. He's been kind of. A lot of people have been picking him every year because he has that much talent, and I think a lot of things are aligned for him. I think one is Aaron Donald, maybe a bit of a. People might be getting a little tired of giving it to Aaron Donald. Maybe not. We'll see. But the Browns' defense will probably be the best since Myles Garrett has been there, which could open it up a lot for him. He could have his best season. And I think, if he leads the NFL in sacks, he'll get it, which I think is not out of the realm of possibility, especially if Cleveland is really good. So I like Myles Garrett just in terms of the fact that, Aaron Donald is just not. I guess he's still a pretty good value. But behind him, the guy I almost thought was Chase Young.
right, because you're high on the football team.
And if he goes, if they're the best defense and he's the best player, it could happen. He could, I think it'll probably go to a defensive lineman. But do you see anybody else on there that you might like? I think it's hard to Jalen Ramsey, I think should have a claim for it. He's not going to get the stats because nobody throws at him.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing with that. Yeah. I was kind of surprised. So on the Rookie of the Year award, so Offensive Rookie of the Year, obviously Trevor Lawrence is a pretty big favorite. Now, I hope this isn't whatchamacallit that I'm trying to I hope this isn't, what am I trying to think of? Curse. I hope I'm not trying to curse Trevor Lawrence here. The only way he's not winning this award is if A, he plays awful, which is very rare to happen, or B, he gets injured, which is a real thing that could happen. That's kind of what happened with Joe Burrow, right? So
but I think Herbert would have stole it. He's probably playing better.
Maybe, right? It's either so Trevor Lawrence is the favorite if he plays the whole year. The only person who I think could creep up behind him, I'm surprised that this is so high on Najee Harris because I don't think he's going to be anywhere close in this conversation. But And
it's
they're going to
hard as
put
a
Trey
running
Lance
back.
over Zach Wilson. I think people are depending on Zach Wilson absolutely bombing this first year.
Yeah, well, I think it comes down to supporting cast, and I think that is the thing that's holding Trevor Lawrence back too. If he's great, but the Jaguars won 4 games, like how much is that going to help? Like, it's not going to be his fault, but it's going to be hard to give an award to somebody who's on a terrible team. I think that's what is holding Zach Wilson down. So I went with some value picks. So obviously Trevor Lawrence, I mean, he's a generational talent. He should win it. But Trey Lance
might be really fun.
Trey Lance and Kyle Pitts are my two kind of, because Kyle Pitts will have an incredible year.
Trey Lance getting the starting gig midway through the season. That's the thing.
Yeah, but also I think it's success as well. If he's in there, I think he'll be really dynamic. The rushing ability that he has will be used, and if the Niners will be better than the Jaguars, I think that could be a case. Because if Trey Lance and Trevor Lawrence are both playing really well, and the Niners are better, then I think that's the tiebreaker. Because I'm not planning on Trevor Lawrence playing bad enough. I just think somebody else could play good enough to beat him. And the fact that Trey Lance is on a team that should probably be competing for the playoffs, could matter. But yeah, Kyle Pitts, I think he's going to break every rookie tight end record I think that's ever been that there is. I think the record is like Jeremy Shockey, like 800 something yards. I mean, he's going to shatter those most likely. And I don't know what it's going to take for a tight end to win Rookie of the Year, but Kyle Pitts is more of he's going to have a great year. If the quarterbacks struggle, then he probably wins it. I don't know if he's going to be able to do enough on his own.
I could see a good, not necessarily comeback from Joe Burrow, but if Joe Burrow connects super well with former teammate Jamar Chase might be kind of a
definitely.
But that's based off of the quarterbacks doing poorly.
Yeah, I think if in order for a receiver or a tight end or maybe even a running back, I mean, if Najee Harris rushes for 1,400 yards or something, maybe, but I don't think he's going to do that in Pittsburgh. But yeah, if the quarterbacks struggle and none of them really, blow anybody away, then I could certainly see a Jamar Chase or a Kyle Pitts or even a Devontae Smith, who might be the number one option in Philadelphia, just taking it. Do you have any opinions on Defensive Rookie of the Year?
Patrick Surtain being number one is pretty close with Micah Parsons. I would put Micah Parsons over him, but I am shocked that J.C. Horn isn't even in the top 5 on odds here, because I like J.C. Horn a lot.
Yeah, I will say it's hard for corners and secondary guys to win these awards because, the corner stats are just really weird. If you're getting the most interceptions doesn't mean you're the best corner. So I think it's sometimes hard to evaluate them, whereas linebackers just rack up tackles, and so their stats look a lot better. Edge rushers get sacks. So that's kind of hard. But yeah, I mean, J.C. Horn, he was the first corner off the board. He certainly, he has the talent. He's a top 10 pick. That is a great, value, certainly.
Parsons, what team did he get drafted by again?
He's on the Cowboys.
The Cowboys, that's what it was. For some reason, I thought he was on the Eagles because I saw so many mock drafts with him getting picked there. But him being on the Cowboys, Lord knows he's going to have his hands full this season, considering the Cowboys are going to keep the other defense off the field quite a bit, and they're going to have to, play relentless defense to keep their team in it. So I'd pick Micah Parsons as my favorite.
Yeah. I went similarly with, I think linebackers have the easiest path because sacks and interceptions can be hard to translate from college to the NFL, but tackles normally translate really well. Guys who are tackle machines continue to do that same thing. And so I went with Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. That's my guy. Slipped to day 2 despite being, one of the best linebackers and, one of the most versatile players in college football the year before. Went to a Browns team that, will be an improved defense, will be in the playoffs, fighting for the playoffs. And if he's, the leader of that defense behind Myles Garrett, I think he's just put in a place to succeed, and I think he can do the type of thing where he can get tackles, he can get interceptions, he can get sacks, he can do enough to make it look really impressive. So that's my guy that I like, sticking true to one of my guys I like from the draft. We can quickly, I don't know if you looked at it or not, but if you looked at comeback player of the year or coach of the year, yep, that's the thing. I really wanted to look at, Saquon Barkley, Joe Burrow, but comeback player of the year is
give it to Dak.
Comeback player of the year is a narrative award. The fact that Dak went down in season is what did it for me. The emotional, thing of watching him get carted out on the field, the fact that they're on Hard Knocks and are interviewing him, as opposed to, Barkley, who I don't even remember him going down.
He got hurt, I think, in that week 2 or week 3 part of the season where everybody got hurt. So
it's totally an emotional thing. And warranted too. He's going to come back, and if set the do what he's doing. But I think Saquon Barkley or Christian McCaffrey could have a better objective season, but they won't have the narrative behind Dak's injury, which makes sense. And then coach of the year, did you look at coach of the year at all?
This one's tough because it went to McDermott last year, didn't it?
No, it went to Stefanski.
Okay, it's going to McDermott this year then. Because I thought he won it last year, but McDermott absolutely deserves it because I think he's one of the best head coaches in the league. If I had to pick a second person, Brian Flores I like a lot too. That's depending on if the Dolphins get a wild card spot in that division, because the Bills are running away with that division. So they're going to have to get double-digit wins and have a pretty if Tua has a good sophomore year, that's going to help Brian Flores' case a lot. Kyle Shanahan, I don't see that at all, really. Brandon Staley, I could totally see with the Chargers being kind of like this on the brink team, but I'm going with McDermott.
The narrative a lot is the guy who takes over the team and leads them to success. It happened with Kevin Stefanski, so that's why Brandon Staley's kind of there, is if the Chargers can be good. But I actually like Kyle Shanahan. Or was he I think he was my pick. Yeah. He hasn't won it. He didn't win it the year
that. Oh, I thought he did win it. Oh,
exactly. Okay. So that's why I went with him. I think,
that's why I'm going with McDermott.
Yeah, exactly. Because Sean McVay would have been a good choice, but he had won it before. But I think, if Kyle Shanahan, his whole time in San Francisco, he's had Jimmy Garoppolo and Nick Mullins and CJ Beathard. If he rolls with Trey Lance at some point, that'll be the most talented guy he's had. I think that it'll be a good demonstration of how good of a coach Kyle Shanahan is, because I think he is really good. But coach of the year, there's always so many candidates to winning it. Because Andy Reid could get it every year. Bill Belichick could have got it every year when he was there. So Sean McDermott, Sean McVay. Pete Carroll. There's guys that could win it every year. So.
I don't even think Pete Carroll's won it before. Maybe he has. I'm not
sure. I think my guess would be he won it back in 2013.
Right. That would make more sense.
But yeah, there's always so many people that could win it. Do you give it to do you give it to the coach with the best record? There's so many different ways to look at it.
Cliff Kingsbury is in the bottom 5 or bottom 4 on this list.
Yeah,
that is.
But yeah, no. Pete Carroll has not won it.
Wow. Coach of the Year is kind of a weird award because it's you could give it to so many people, like you said, and you could follow a narrative, but you could follow a different narrative or this or that.
It goes to show that the guy with the best odds is plus 1,200. That's insanely high. But we can move on to some statistical leaders. Go down those pretty quickly. Passing yards, I believe, is the first one listed there. We can just go through. There's kind of a lot, and kind of just give our take for the guy we think is going to take it. So who do you got for passing yards?
I'll go rapid fire here, but passing yards, I'm going Josh Allen, and for passing touchdowns, I will go Patty Holmes.
So yeah, passing yards, I like Dak for that one. I mean, he was on an incredible
That would be
team
my second
last
pick.
year.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got the weapons. He might have one of the best. I mean, he has one of the best receiving trios in the league, and the bad defense. The fact that they're going to be playing, not necessarily from behind, but probably having to put up a lot of points.
They'll be in shootouts. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing that holds back. Maybe a Josh Allen if the defense can kind of, he probably won't throw for very many yards against the Jets because they'll be kicking their ass. And then touchdowns, I went kind of deep on that, and I went with Matthew Stafford. This is where I said I'll talk about him again. I'm not going
I thought
MVP.
you were going to be passing yards for him, so I was close.
No, I just think that the yards I think is going to go to a high volume offense, whereas I think the touchdowns, I think that's where he could thrive in that. With the receivers they have, the Rams offense is so much like creating open looks that they can get some touchdowns for him. I think Sean McVay is going to want to throw with his quarterback, especially now that Cam Akers is out. So they've lost their go-to running back. I think he's going to want to prove that he's got something there in Stafford and show what he can do. But you went with Patrick Mahomes on that. That's a very solid pick, obviously. He's a beast.
In terms of, they have on here interceptions
thrown.
I've
got my interceptions pick.
I'm surprised that Daniel Jones isn't higher on this list, but
I think he fumbles too much to throw interceptions.
Yeah. I would pick I would have picked Carson Wentz, but I don't know when he's going to be back. So, I mean,
there's a pretty obvious answer.
Looks tempting, but I think I'm going to go with the wild one and go Zach Wilson.
That's my guy. That's my pick.
Yeah.
I think for a couple reasons. When you look at this, you have to look at options they have. Zach Wilson's not getting benched no matter how poorly he plays.
Exactly. Yeah.
If Carson Wentz sucks, he's getting benched. If a lot of these guys, if they suck, they're getting benched because they have the options. But he's a rookie. He's on a bad Jets team. Not even to mention he's got to play the Patriots, the Bills, and the Dolphins 6 times, which are all really solid defenses with great corners. I just think, it's not an indictment on him at all. I don't think that means he's going to be terrible. I just think, this is a trial year. This is, he can make mistakes and it'll be fine. So I think, Zach Wilson, you never want to, bet on who's going to throw the most interceptions, but definitely.
Receiving, I'll go. There's 3 of them here. We got yards, touchdowns, and receptions.
Yeah.
But hold on one second. Let's see. Receiving yards. I'm real high on this guy this year, but I'm going Calvin Ridley. Receiving touchdowns. Oh, geez. Receiving touchdowns. We'll go Devontae Adams again.
Solid.
For that. Hold on one second. Gosh, when you press show more on here, they show you every single player.
Yep. Shows you every single one.
Let's see. Receptions. For receptions, I will go. They have Stephon Diggs number 1. I can see that, honestly.
He led the league in receptions last year. Right. So for mine, receiving yards, I like Travis Kelce. He was really close. He was really close last year, I believe. That'd
be quite something.
A dominant tight end. Best tight end, and he's probably a top 5. If you want to loop him in with the receivers, he's still top 5. He's just insane. Throwing the fact that he's got the best quarterback in the game, throwing it to him. It's just a recipe for success. So I think Travis Kelce, in terms of getting him at plus 1,300 as the. What is he? He's the 5th option, for a guy who is that good. I like that. Calvin Ridley's a great one, being the number 1 in that offense. Finally getting to fully be the number 1 guy. Receiving touchdowns. I don't know how Cooper Kupp is plus 9,000. but the value on that is incredible. 2 years ago, he had 10 touchdowns and was tied for second. Like, the fact that he has worse odds than Antonio Brown and like Jamar Chase is just
bad.
Crazy to me. So that would be but other than that, I also like Mike Evans. I know I talked about him a few weeks ago, the double-digit touchdowns, getting a full year of Tom Brady. I mean, last year Devontae Adams led with 18, which was a historical season. Normally it only takes around 12 to 14 maybe to lead the league. So Evans could easily get 12, I think, but Cup at that value is just incredible. And then receptions, I like Keenan Allen. He's a ultimate possession guy, and a full year of an improved Justin Herbert, and the fact that Keenan Allen has the 7th best odds. I mean, I like that combination there. A dude that is one of the best route runners in the league, with a quarterback that is probably going to be better and is looking to throw it a lot more. I really like. I think Keenan Allen's gonna have a great year this year. So yeah,
I mean, they'll probably have a career-defining year depending on how.
I think so. I mean, obviously he's got to stay healthy. He's had some injuries in the past, but he'll have an incredible quarterback. But yes, Stephon Diggs. I mean, he did it last year. He certainly can do it again. He's the same mold as he's an incredible route runner. He's probably the best route runner in the league. Creates separation like insane. Both those guys do. So I think it's going to come down to route running on that. But what do you like for the rushing ones? Your rushing yards, rushing touchdowns.
Rushing yards, I think people would be joking themselves if they said anything other than Derrick Henry.
Yeah,
I think if they say anybody other than Derrick Henry, they're relying on an injury of sorts. If you're running a guy 30 plus times a game in an offense like that, just the only thing that you can maybe say against it is now they have Julio, so maybe they're going to spread it around or this or that. But Derrick Henry's a clear favorite. That is easily the safest bet, obviously being the number one bet there. But rushing touchdowns, I'll go a little wild here and say Nick Chubb, because much so of the Browns still getting inches and inches closer to being one of the premier teams in the league, and Nick Chubb continues to get better. He is coming off injury, but if he wasn't injured that whole season, I mean, he would have been right up there with Dalvin and Derek.
Yeah, I mean, he finished the season strong and was still really good.
Yeah, I like Nick Chubb a lot in that run-first offense.
Yeah, definitely.
The Browns are going to do what it takes to win games. They're not necessarily going to put on a show, if you will, because they understand the position that they're in, I think, and they're stick with their bread and butter. And Nick Chubb, a safe pick for touchdowns.
I like Nick Chubb as a value for rushing yards. Obviously, Derrick Henry will probably do it, but I think if somebody not named Derrick Henry does it, I really like Nick Chubb. I mean, if he gets 16 games of doing what he's doing, he's kind of like a Derrick Henry light, not exactly as good and as big as him. But, I mean, he doesn't really catch the ball much. He just runs hard. So if somebody other than Derrick Henry, I think it could be him. And then for rushing touchdowns, I went with Alvin Kamara, who has the 6th best odds. And it's just, he's a dude who can find the end zone. I believe when we talk about running backs, he's got 58 touchdowns in 60 games. He finds the end zone almost better than anybody. Obviously, Derrick Henry is another great pick for that because he's just as dominant as he is. But Alvin Kamara, I don't know what their offense is going to look like, obviously, depending on who they have. But with everything going on with Michael Thomas, whether they have Jameis or Taysom Hill, relying on Alvin Kamara should be exactly what that team does. And I think that could lead to him scoring a lot of touchdowns this year, which he's done before. So it's not, the craziest thing.
Yeah. And in terms of defense, you could talk about it for ages in terms of defensive stats, but in terms of sacks, other than Aaron Donald, you could go a ton of different directions. In fact, Aaron Donald and TJ Watt are tied for the number one pick. And
TJ Watt led the league last year.
Right. and number 3 is Myles Garrett, and he's only 50 points behind.
Yeah, very close.
So it's real tight between the 3 of them. As much as I'd love to pick a guy like Khalil Mack, he's not necessarily a sack getter. He just makes plays, and he makes dominant plays, I guess is the best way I could say it, whether it be a strip sack or a strip fumble, tackles or interceptions, or he does everything he wants, right? So, I mean, if I could pick a dark horse for this award, again, this is based off of a healthy season, but Joey Bosa intrigues me here. He gets to go against a lackluster Seahawks offensive line twice a year where he'll get they got a little bit better in this offseason, but he could very well get 4 or 5 sacks off of those games. But then I look at Aaron Donald and be like, well, he could probably get 5 or 6 sacks off of those games. So, but Joey Bosa, I think, is a good dark horse for this category.
Yeah, I like Myles Garrett there. Like I said, I mean, I think he's got a good chance to win Defensive Player of the Year. I think he'll be on the best defense with the best supporting cast he's had, and I think that'll lead to sacks where, I mean, that year he got suspended, he was on pace for like 16 sacks. He was averaging 1 a game. He certainly has a talent. But dark horses, just scrolling through, I mean, Nick Bosa's at plus 2,300, way down there. I know that he, hasn't lit the world on fire with sacks, but I mean, he's had a rookie year and then an injured sophomore year. So that, and then even going deeper than that, Montez Sweat, with Chase Young rushing on the opposite side of him, he's a dude who could rack him up. And then this is absolutely not going to happen, but Jamal Adams does have plus 6,000. It won't happen, but I do think that if they used him pass rushing a lot more, then, I mean, he had like 8.5 last year. Who knows? But he's not going to get 14, 15.
No.
But I just think it's kind of funny. The fact that he is even on that list is incredible. I know they don't have odds for interceptions, and I might be springing this on you.
So hard to predict.
It's tough. But I think that because it's so volatile that they don't want to even.
Tackle leader, I'll throw Bobby Wagner in there just because I love him. He's always an option for that. But interceptions, I mean, Minkah Fitzpatrick playing free safety in that Pittsburgh defense, I like him. That would probably be my pick. I mean, Xavier Howard had 10 last year, but he's got some stuff going on with him. That is our season preview here on NFL Dash. We are going to be getting, now that the season is almost starting, the preseason starting, so it's kind of football. Not that a lot of starters are playing. I know Russell Wilson sat on the sideline with his pads on all game yesterday. But we will be back with you next week. Thank you for tuning in, and remember to check out the other Dash properties as we get into the college season as well. To follow Dash Sports on YouTube to find all of our shows, and to follow Dashboards TV on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, and visit our website, dashboards.tv. Thank you for tuning in. See you next week.